Hello, good morning and welcome to this week's staff brief. I'm Paul Robinson, I'm the Chief Executive here at the Trust. I'm sorry that we're a couple of minutes late, a couple of technical issues that we needed to just smooth out. Today with me I've got 6 guests. I've got a gang today. So with me I've got Phil Bolton, our Chief Nurse, Sally Palmer, our Infection Prevention and Control Lead, who are going to touch on the rising incidence of COVID across the Trust, and I'll touch on obviously the requirement to wear face coverings as well. I've also got David Ainsworth, who started last Friday on the 1st of July as our Director of Strategy and Partnerships here in the Trust, and David will be introducing himself and talking about his role. Also got Vicky Malia, who's the Head of Culture and Engagement here at the Trust, and Vicky's going to be talking about National Staff Survey commitments and also Pride Month, July's Pride Month. So she's going to display a very snazzy T-shirt as well. And then lastly, but not least, we've got Jim Millns, the Associate Director of Transformation, and Rich Cotterill, Head of People Analytics. We're going to be updating us on the new people, culture and improvement strategy. Okay, so plenty to get through. So I'll kick off with some general updates. First one, I just want to, the big news of the week here at the Trust has been that face masks are back, and that's across all our sites for all our staff, colleagues, staff, patients and visitors, and we know that COVID rates are rising in the community and indeed nationally. Thanks for everyone, thanks for all your support and understanding. I'm sure you understand why we've had to take this measure. It's important that we help managing those rising case numbers and indeed the rising number of outbreaks that we've got across the Trust. Phil and Sally will give a little bit more update of that, the need for it and the expectations that are ongoing in terms of precautions and testing. I'll move on. This week we've launched our recruitment site, so we've got a dedicated recruitment microsite which will serve as our sort of virtual shop window for anyone looking for roles within the Trust, specifically focusing in the first instance on nursing, midwifery, healthcare support worker and allied health professional roles. And one of the big benefits of the site is that anyone looking for roles here at the Trust can register their details for free and then receive information and details on vacancies as they arise. We can share the link to the new website in the chat. I think that my comms support today can do that in the chat and publish it so everyone can get a look at where they can access that. And thanks to everyone who's been involved in putting that together. Lots of departments and people involved across nursing, our people functions and communications functions. So special thanks to all those who also provided quotes and featured in videos about their role and also what it's like to work here at Sherwood. So important that people who are looking to experience candidates can see what people who work here actually think about working at the Trust and what it means to them. Okay, so yesterday, the 5th of July was the birthday of the NHS. So the NHS turned 74 yesterday. So obviously milestones bring opportunity to demonstrate and celebrate. So really demonstrate how the NHS has revolutionised and adapted to the ever-changing needs of patients and our services, and as we do and celebrate every time we have an NHS birthday. Thank you to everyone who contributes to Sherwood Forest and to the NHS and contributing to the success of both. And then lastly, before I hand over to Phil and to Sally, I just wanted to give a shout out to Wellbeing Wednesday, which takes place at 12:15 following this brief. The Wellbeing team will be discussing menopause, and the session will give colleagues a chance to talk about the experience of menopause at work and at home. You might have a friend, a family member or a partner, or indeed be experiencing symptoms yourself, and this will provide a great opportunity for knowing where to access help and support. And the Wellbeing team will share plenty of resources to help you or a colleague who might need it. So that's at 12:15 following this brief. Okay, so Phil, Sally, we've reintroduced face masks. COVID's on the up. Can you give us a little bit more details of the decisions that we've been taking and the measures that we're expecting to adopt or reinstate for all staff and visitors? Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for your time, everyone. I always seem to get the negative stories, don't I? But as Paul said, we introduced masks. We had a good discussion on the brief last week, and just to reinforce what Paul said, the response from you all has been overwhelmingly positive and supportive, and we genuinely thank you for that. It made it a really smooth transition. I think the feedback I've had, most of you understand and think it's the right thing. Rates continue to rise in the community, in the region, as well as within the hospital. I'm sure many of you know somebody that's COVID positive or isolated at the moment. We all seem to know someone or know someone that knows someone. So it's definitely still prevalent. In the trust, we have 11 outbreaks at the moment. 5 of those are in patient areas and 6 are staff outbreaks. So just to reinforce that point, this affects all of us. Doesn't matter what your role or where your team sit. This isn't just about patient-facing areas. I think that's a really important point. We're also starting to see more patients admitted with symptomatic COVID, so with respiratory symptoms. Still have 2 within our intensive care unit and approximately 20 in the respiratory pathways. So again, that's starting to creep up. And we touched on staff sickness as well. We said last week 2 parts to this: protecting our patients, but protecting ourselves and our workforce. And 143 staff currently absent with COVID-related absence, and that was against 99 last week when we last met. So that's nearly a 50-person increase into it. So that's quite significant absence, and that's against other absence that always is there, and annual leave. So staff availability and staff away from work, that's a challenge, and that's what I'm sure you're all feeling. And I know, talking to you out in your departments and teams, you're noticing this. So just to sort of reinforce why we brought the mask wearing back in, it's absolutely the right thing. But alongside that are the other measures we spoke about, the things that you've done. And I said this last time, you've done this for the last 2 years. You're well versed at it. It's worked. So let's continue to do that. I know we're all a bit fatigued and fed up of it, but the hand washing, the maintaining space, wearing of our masks. And I think while we're not making lots of other decisions to step things back at the minute, we need to think sensibly about, can that meeting take place on Teams? How many of us are in the meeting? That agile, sensible decision making that you need to do with your teams. So I think that's something we are saying at the moment. I know colleagues where appropriate are still working from home. If you can do a meeting via Teams, then I think that's something you need to consider. And then a few questions around outbreaks as well, how we manage those. We currently follow the national guidance on this, as we've done throughout the last 2 years. So we don't plan to deviate from that at the moment. And that guidance is in an outbreak situation. Sally and her team will always work with you, but we require all our staff to have a PCR test to confirm whether there's anyone else within that team that may need to isolate. And that's to keep you safe, and it's to keep your families safe, and it's to keep your patients safe. So we really need you to work with us and do that. And I know it's causing some frustration, and some of you are having to have multiple tests, but that's there, as I say, to keep everybody safe. So we really do need you in those outbreak areas to work with us and comply with that ask. And that's not an ask from Sherwood, that's the national guidance. That's what we have to do. Sometimes it's frustrating when we don't always see the rationale in some of these things, particularly when out in the community we can still go about our usual business. We've almost got one set of rules outside and one set within the hospital, but that's as it is, and that's because we're working with more vulnerable people. So it might be frustrating, but really need you to continue to support us and work with us on that. And also, you're all doing your twice weekly lateral flow testing, so continue to do that as well. I think people are doing that, because that's why we're seeing the increase in positive results going up and the response that we're having to take. So Sally's here. Always great to have Sally here. Keeps me on the right track and comes with, make sure I tell you things that are factually correct. So Sally, anything you want to add?
I just think just one of the things for me is around the staff testing and accessing LFTs. So we're not able to keep stocks for staff on site anymore. So we don't get deliveries of those. So you are required to order your own from the government website. They are free of charge, and you can go on and just let them. They'll ask you to pick which trust you work for, and then register your details as normal, and they'll be sent out in the post to you normally within 2 or 3 days. So do please utilise that and maybe get some in hand as well. Do the regular orders with those. But we really appreciate you continuing with that and supporting us with everything that we're doing within the organisation.
Thank you, Sally. Phil, we have had a couple of questions that have come in the chat, and please keep your questions coming in the chat as you usually do. So specifically around some of the points that you raised, what if a staff member in an outbreak area refuses to have a PCR test?
Yes, good question, and something that has happened over the last week. So for me, it's about taking a personal approach. We really want to work with you to understand why that is. And I think it is a reasonable request, because this is about keeping you and your team safe, as I said, and it's about keeping patients in the hospital safe. And if there's a risk of transmission that we can reduce, then that's the professional responsible thing to do. So I'd like to think that we could work with you through your line manager or through someone else in your organisation to understand what the reason is that you feel that you can't work with us by having that test. I think it's a reasonable ask. As I say, we have had that scenario. I know people are really frustrated, and you could be an area where you're having to do this multiple times, and it's really frustrating, but it's there for a reason, and it remains the current process, policy and guidance, so we need to follow that, and I feel really strongly that that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Phil. Is there any update on further vaccinations, and do we know if the vaccination is effective against the new variants that we've got of Omicron, BA4 and 5?
Sally, do you want to take this? Do you want me to start? I mean, we're still awaiting. We think there may be an offer of a fourth vaccine for healthcare workers. That's me just giving you what we know at the moment. As soon as we get anything more formal and what that looks like, we'd share that with you. I think you're probably as excited as I am that, the different variants, we don't know whether the vaccine fully responds to all these different variants, but I think what we do know by now is that the vaccine is better than no vaccine in terms of, the results that we've seen. I think they're continually monitoring the vaccines, monitoring the different variants and adapting and adjusting things to respond to that. So still, yeah, there's a lot of unknowns, but I think we can confidently say from what we've seen so far that the vaccine does have a positive impact. Sally, do you want to?
Yeah, no, you've covered I think pretty much everything there. We are they do monitor the vaccine quite closely and do update if there are any where it's not going to work and that's not come through. So it does seem to be working against these variants. Thank
you. A couple of further questions. Will we return to getting twice weekly COVID updates regarding the numbers? I'm guessing regarding numbers of patients. So I think, Phil, ICT meets once a week, and I think the updates that we provide through those following those is weekly, and I don't think there's any plan to increase the frequency of that just yet, is there?
Yeah, we had a discussion this morning about perhaps increasing the ICT, which is the incident control meeting, to 3 shorter ones, sort of Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We had a brief discussion about what we communicate out following that, and we've got Richard and David on the call, and I've got some thoughts. So I think if there's regular updates to give, then we can do that. But sometimes there's nothing new. I think a weekly of the figures and things is probably sufficient, and then anything additional that's we need to get out, we'll do that.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Sounds sensible. Further question around working from home. So if people work part-time at home and part in the office, can we still request an office chair for home, please? I think this is one of those assessments that are in discussion with line managers in terms of need for the appropriate chair at home. Sally's nodding. So do you have a little bit more information on this, Sally?
I think that's what we've done in the past, so I'm assuming it would still be the same.
It certainly hasn't changed. So if we've got an assessment of need for an office chair in a home environment for people working from home, then talk to your line manager around undertaking that assessment. Okay, thank you. So that's all the questions that we have currently. So I'm going to move to David. David, welcome to the trust. I know you're familiar with Sherwood Forest Hospitals. You've been a partner of Sherwood Forest in your previous roles with the CCG, but welcome to the trust, and the floor's yours.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Paul, and hello, colleagues. Thanks very much for allowing me to drop into this brief this morning. It's first of all a huge thank you to everybody that I've met so far. I've had nothing but warm welcomes across the organisation. So if I've met you already, that's brilliant, and if I'm yet to meet you, I look forward to that day. I've got genuine delight to be here. As Paul said, I've been in this system for quite some time. I've worked in Mansfield, Ashford and Erkinshire, so the mid-Notts patch, for 8 years now. So I know our external environment really well, and hope to bring some of that experience and knowledge around partners into the organisation. I recognise I wanted to work here. You know, this is for me a great trust. For me it fits with my personal values. I want to make a difference to people's home and working lives and their future aspirations. And the role really is reflective of the world around us changing. CCG, so commissioning groups, have now finished as of the 1st of July. We've got these new things called integrated care boards, and I've only got 5 minutes, so I'm not going to do a talk on what they are. But in response to that, we expect as a trust to work with our partners in new ways that add value to the public. So partners such as local councils to address the rising inequalities that we have in our communities, with other NHS bodies like NUH, Notts Healthcare, to address common challenges like discharge to assess, for example, and with new providers and education providers around us to develop new and exciting career and training opportunities for everyone of every ability. So I look forward to working with you. I commit to working hard on our collective behalf. I'm not sure I should do that because my boss Paul's listening, but I've done it now, so it's too late. I in your workplace to understand your world better. So if I haven't met you already and you want to drop me an email, there's no numbers, it's just my first name and surname at nhs.net. And I want to make sure the conversations I have are reflective of the experiences that you have on a day-to-day basis. And I'd say to you, you know, the future is in our hands. Let us be ambitious. Let us dream big. Keep your ideas and thoughts coming in. Do keep engaging with us, please. And let us build on all the things that are fantastic in #TeamSFH. And finally, thanks for your valuable contributions. I know it's really busy at the moment. I know things are changing. We've already heard around COVID and what we expect from staff. So thanks for being flexible. Thanks for your understanding, and thanks for helping us keep everybody, frankly, in the hospital and outside in the community safe. Paul, thanks a lot. That's over to you.
Thanks, David. I've got lots of questions to ask, but I'll save those for when we have one-to-ones. You mentioned it's a new role, but you've certainly not got a blank piece of paper. We've certainly had lots of discussions about you know, really excited that you're joining, the experience that you've got. And I've got a question in the chat that or a comment. Obviously you're a radio star, because someone's asking, David, I recognise your voice. Did you do lots of speaking on Mansfield Radio?
So yes, I did, and still do, and still expect I will do in this role, because communications is part of my portfolio, so I'll be working closely with the Trust Comms team, so I will continue to do that. And actually I found out that I've received a mayor's commendation for my radio personality over the last 2 years, which I pick up on Friday evening. So I think I'm going to have to continue it now to live out that commendation. So yes, good to see you. And if you're one of my listeners, it's good to see you in person. I think I've got about 28 listeners now.
Oh, wow. I'll have to add award-winning radio presenter to your CV. and we've got a message that it's not anonymous, but I'm not sure exactly who it is, David. So the individual might want to contact you directly. Great to have you on board, David. Love to update you where we are with virtual boards. So just urge the sender of that message to get in touch directly with David.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We need to move on. We've got Vicky waiting. So welcome, Vicky, Head of Culture and Engagement. Tell us where we are with our National Staff Survey commitments.
Absolutely. How on earth do I follow that though? I don't do radio or anything, so I'm going to go out and seek an opportunity now. So thank you ever so much for having me join today. As Paul said, I'm going to touch upon some of our National Staff Survey commitment areas and some updates for you, and then also have the privilege of talking to you about Pride as well, which I'm absolutely thrilled to do on behalf of Mitchell Speed, who's the chair of the LGBTQ+ network here at the organisation. So in terms of National Staff Survey, we obviously came to you about a month ago now to talk to you about some of our commitments as an organisation based on what you told us in our National Staff Survey last year, which feels very long time ago now, and we'll be gearing up for the next one soon. But we keep going and we keep trying to make improvements in the meantime. So today I just want to give a couple of updates around our Valuing You commitment pillar. So we gave 3 commitment pillars: valuing you, caring about you, and developing you. So in terms of valuing you, our main drivers for this were really around your feedback that you didn't feel there was enough staff in the organisation to do your job properly. We've heard from Phil and Sally this morning, COVID numbers again are impacting that. You'll all be struggling with those things. But also, as Paul talked about, the recruitment microsite, I know our recruitment team are doing so much work about attracting people into the organisation, and we will keep on plugging away to get as many people into any of our vacancies as possible, and keep looking at how we do things differently and flexibly to be able to offer opportunities here at Sherwood. So that's one of our key pieces of work that we're doing. Thank you, my top for Pride, absolutely, love wins. So that's around that. The other thing that we're doing around valuing you is listening to your feedback around saying that you didn't feel that the organisation was demonstrating its value to you strongly enough, and we hear that really strongly, and we also see it quite a lot in our Facebook group. So first thing to say is we are noticing that, so please do keep giving us that feedback. I've picked up some really helpful pieces in that Facebook group around people missing milestone awards, people feeling that colleagues weren't getting the recognition they deserved when they left after huge long periods of service to Sherwood, and that they felt that people were walking out the door without the right amount of recognition from the organisation, and we absolutely agree with you there. I think what we recognise is COVID's made us lose the personal touch with some of our reward and recognition, so we're going to be doing lots of work to bring that back, to really make sure we've got all of those foundations in place so that every one of you is welcomed properly on your first day, so that you're thanked for your service. We talk about NHS service now, not just Sherwood service, because people are moving around systems. So it's important to us that you're recognised no matter where you've given that contribution to the NHS. So look out for more around reward and recognition. If you've got feedback of things you'd like to see, I'd really love to hear it from you. I've had some great conversations with colleagues this week about how we can do this better. So let me know what you're looking for around reward and recognition. What would really make a difference to you? Is it the cakes, on your special professional day? Does that really make you feel special and valued? Is it something else that we need to do more throughout the year? I'd really, really like to hear your comments and feedback on that. So that's some more updates around valuing you. Work in progress, but we'll keep going. And then Pride. So yeah, absolutely happy Nottingham Pride to everybody who's involved in that. Obviously Pride nationally was through June, but in Nottingham apparently we've always done it differently. So July is Pride month for us here in Nottinghamshire. So a couple of updates. I'm going to read off my book to make sure I get these right for Mitchell. So we have got some Pride marches happening in the organisation. We've got one at Newark on Tuesday the 26th of July at 10 AM. And one at Kingsmill on Thursday the 28th of July at 1 PM. More details will be shared around those marches, but please do join those, either as a member of that community or as an ally who wants to show your support to our community and our colleagues, and also importantly our LGBTQI+ patients that we care for in the organisation, because this is about everybody, not just our staff. You hopefully will have seen as well that the flag has gone up at Sherwood, so really proud moment for the the staff network to see that flying high above Sherwood. And the Rainbow Crossing has had a facelift and is looking beautiful and sparkly. So do go and have a look at that. It really raises my spirits, definitely, when I arrive on site and see that. And our departments have been encouraged to create displays to support and celebrate Pride this month. So do share on social media if you're creating displays in your areas to support colleagues and patients. Warning, Paul, my Amazon package has just arrived to Do Trust HQ. So we will be a beautiful rainbow as of next week as well. And also just an offer to please do join the network, either, like I say, as a member of that community or as an ally who wants to help drive that really important work forward. And then final note from me is our pulse survey. So we do our national staff survey once a year, our big one, but we do 3 smaller ones in the other quarters of the year. And that July pulse survey is live now. And you should have had an email around that. If you haven't, get in touch with me. If you can take, it's literally 10 questions, this one. So 2 or 3 minutes. If you can share your voice with us, we would be very, very grateful. It helps us have points across the year where we can check in with how you're feeling on some of those key questions. And that's everything from me today. Thank you.
Thanks, Vicky. Lots in there. We had some love for your T-shirt. We've published in the chat. We've had one question around possibility of having rainbow lanyards. Some staff have got them apparently. Not seen them in.
I'll have to go check with Mitchell on those ones. I think, having spoken to Ali last week, I think we've got some maybe coming along, but I don't want to promise anything and get it wrong. So I'll ask Ali to make sure that comms are around that.
Thank you. And some more love for you. Apparently, you've got a career in radio.
Oh, David, was that from you?
You're the one that's going to take over David's slot. David, you've got competition.
Excellent.
Over to you, Vicky.
Could do a double act, David, maybe a joint show.
And then there's a comment I think that comes into the realms of what you were requesting to hear people's experiences that you've noted on Facebook, etc. So someone's posted that they're being valued as a member of staff. It also includes decency of line managers to discuss changes that are happening or new roles in the department, and making sure everyone is up to date and not hearing things secondhand or rumours. So there's something I think you can pick up there. I think thank you for sharing that in the chat. So it's something that Vicky will include in the considerations of how we take that forward. But certainly something I absolutely agree with. Openness and transparency is one of the cornerstones, I think, of compassionate leadership, and something that I would expect to happen throughout the whole of the organisation. Okay, thank you, Vicky. I'm moving swiftly on to Jim and to Rich, who are going to give us an update on the people, culture and improvement strategy. This was agreed and approved, signed off at our last board meeting, so we're really excited to hear a little bit more about it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Paul, and an afternoon, everyone. So it's just clocked into afternoon, so I was going to say good morning, but got the time right, which is great start. So yeah, thanks, Paul. This is an ongoing, I guess, a socialisation. I think that's the word into at the moment, of our people, culture and improvement strategy 22-25. So a little bit of a quick recap for those who may not be aware. The purpose of this strategy was the bringing together the people and the culture and improvement directorates to produce a commitment, a written commitment around helping our people to be the best they can be, which I think is long overdue. I think we do a lot of this, but I think the writing it down and making it a firm commitment was really important. And the focus areas, or the 4 pillars, as we have increasingly started to refer to them, looking after our people, what it means to belong in the NHS, new ways of working and delivering care, and growing for the future. So it's actually been co-created with colleagues across the people and culture and improvement directorates, plus some discussions outside of the respective directorates, and it is underpinned and ultimately links back to our care values. So a really pertinent and I think a really significant piece of work which we are quite proud of. So Rich and myself, we're here to talk about Pillar 4, which is new ways of working and delivering care. So I'm going to hand over to Rich, who's going to talk about workforce planning components in the first instance, which is around capability, leadership and nurturing a learning and sharing mindset. So if I may hand over to Rich, that'd be great.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, everybody. So as part of developing our workforce offer is we are planning, and we have started to develop a 3-year strategic workforce plan that will look at the shape and size of our workforce in the future and start to understand some of those demographic changes that we know are on the horizon, as well as undertake a assessment of what growth that we are predicting. This is done, I suppose, to move us out the 1-year planning cycle we sometimes get stuck in and gives a longer term forecast so we can really start to impact and influence change across Sherwood. So practically some of the elements we're going to start to deliver on is we're going to develop tactical people plans, and what we mean by this is we're going to take a blended workforce approach to look at where we have risk and start to look at alternative workforce options, hard to fill posts, making sure we have equitable access across all teams, and making sure we have equitable and efficient processes. Some of those might be around admin processes, nursing, medical, etc. But the key thing is, I suppose, is moving away from that potential silo planning that we traditionally get formed into and looking broader and wider so we can actually develop some long-lasting, efficient workforce change into the organisation. So that's one of the elements we are going to look at. There are other elements in there, but we are going to start to look at workforce reviews across the organisation and feed these through our workforce task forces. At the moment, we have 3 planned. So we have nursing, midwifery and AHP, we have medical, we have an admin workforce, and then we're going to develop a pharmacy task force that's going to start to implement some of those changes that we are planning. So that's the workforce offer we're talking about. What I'll do is hand back to Jim, and then Jim will go through the continuous learning element. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. So in terms of the new ways of working components of this particular pillar, we want to become an organisation that continually learns and improves. And we'll do that through a number of ways. Some of the things that we are doing. So we have a 3-year transformation and efficiency programme, which is currently being delivered. We'll continue to deliver the continuous improvement at Sherwood Forest Hospital strategy. We'll ensure that we exploit digital opportunities where we can, and we will eventually establish an innovation hub. And I do often get asked what an innovation hub is. For Sherwood Forest, I think it's an amalgamation of lots of different things. It's a way of harvesting new ideas to how we learn, how do we improve. It is around seeking best practice, so effectively plagiarising from areas that have done stuff and it's worked really, really well. And it is also a better way, actually, interestingly, something that David mentioned earlier, about establishing better links to academia, to the voluntary sector, to other partners, as well as the commercial sector as well, something that we do occasionally, but I don't think we do consistently. We want to embed agile working across the organisation so that it's embedded in the organisation. It's something that we offer new starters and people who work for the Trust. We want to get better at engaging with our citizens and colleagues who will undoubtedly help us to shape our future ambitions, and that's exactly the right thing to do. So overall, Paul, the aims of Pillar 4 to promote innovation at every level of the Trust. So 5,500 people have something to contribute in terms of our innovative journey. We want to encourage creativity. So no idea is a bad idea until we've scoped and worked out. We want to establish best practice across the organisation. And we want to ensure that we have a long-term workforce plan that promotes and celebrates talent and provides development opportunities for everybody across their entire career. So in short, we're really excited about this, both in terms of Pillar 4, which is the one where I've got an inherent interest in, as does Rich. So we're excited to help deliver Pillar 4, but excited about the strategy as well. So I think the only limitations to this strategy going forward are our own imagination and our own ambition. So we'd really, really welcome comments and views and opinions about the strategy in terms of how this evolves and how we implement this. But we are planning to get round as many teams and departments as we can over the coming weeks. Obviously, COVID pending, we need to be sensible about it, as you mentioned at the beginning, Paul. And we want to hear from people about how we can make this strategy a reality, so it isn't just a series of commitments written on a piece of paper. It has to mean something to our colleagues across the organisation. So we'd be really, really keen to hear and speak to you where we can. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Rich. So that last sort of comment you made there, Jim. You want people to get involved, to give comments. How can we access the strategy? How do we give feedback, and how do we contact you to be able to come and talk to us about it?
Yeah, so the strategy is online. It has now been published. I'll get the link out afterwards and share that with people so people know how to get hold of the strategy. And in the first instance, if they want to make contact, they can do so with myself or Richard, or alternatively via Rob Simcox and Emma Challens. And again, just for completeness, I'll make sure that the contact details are sent out afterwards rather than me reading out a series of email addresses now. But in effect, any of us in the People and Culture Directorate, People, Culture and Improvement Directorates are really happy to take comments and receive views and such like. But I'll make sure those contact details are sent out afterwards.
That's great, thank you. I've had a question about your role. So, Associate Director of Transformation. What does that mean?
It's I guess a multifaceted role. That's an easy cop-out answer, isn't it? I do lots of things, but I suppose predominantly my role is to oversee the delivery of the transformation and efficiency programme. So the things that we would like to change, the things that we would like to get better at, and the things that we would like to improve going forward. So it encompasses lots of different things, the programme, right through from high-level, large-scale programmes like making better use of the Newark Hospital site, right down to fairly transactional improvements at a divisional level. And me and my team oversee, we help enable and support and corporate services to enact those changes. So in a nutshell, that's what I do.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jim. Sorry for throwing you that hot potato there. So yeah, I agree. I think it's really useful for people to get a view of that strategy, and I'm just publishing in the chat. Someone sent a link through to it, so there's now a link published in the chat to it, because I think some of the things you were both talking about there about sort of longer term planning for sustainability, that sort of new thinking and slicker processes, new options, but that sort of transformation word. So it's in your job title, Jim, but I think it's something that we all should be thinking about, and it's as simple as finding better ways or finding new ways to solve issues that we have, or problems, or leading to something, solving something that's small in our services or departments, or large in terms of organisation wide. No, there's absolutely something that we can all think about. Innovate, be creative. Is all about finding new ways to solve old problems, and I think that's something that we can all come to work and on site and in the trust and think about. Okay, great, thank you. Thanks everyone. I think we're just about on time. I don't have any more questions in the chat. I don't want to overrun, so I don't want to run into Wellbeing Wednesday. So thank you to everyone who took part today. To Phil, Sally, Rich, David, Jim and Vicky, our new radio star. Thanks to everyone who contributed, and thanks for taking part and watching today. I hope to see you again next week. Have a good week, and we'll see you then. Bye.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.